Hello, tasty to everybody. Yesterday I spoke at the University of Colorado on this issue, but then the audio was not clear, so many people requested that I make a statement on this, especially on the issue of His Holiness Dalai Lama, playfully kissing a boy and saying something politically incorrect. Those who know His Holiness the Dalai Lama, like Tibetans and Buddhists and people who have visited him and met him, will not see any story whatsoever in the story which is being shared and reported by major news media around the world. Number one, the incident happened in February 28. Why the news is going viral now after 5 weeks, that itself is a question. Number two, if you have met His Holiness Dalai Lama, having worked with him for 10 years, I've been with him in many public events. He is one playful person. For example, if there is an Indian security person with a beard, he will pull his beard. If you have a mustache, he will play with your mustache. Sometimes, he will pull his mustache down, I'm sure that person has spent many minutes, keeping it up. He pulls it down. And if you have a big head, he'll point your head and say, big head, So if you have a big nose, he will say, big nose, and he goes close and gives the New Zealand Maori greeting, of touching each other's nose. So he's like that all the time playing. And if you are bald, that's it. He'll rub your head and give you one spank. Sometimes quite hard. My security Kalayan used to get quite a few spank on his head because he was bald. Now, imagine His Holiness Dalai Lama going to the White House, meeting the President of America. This can't be, as serious and formal meeting as possible. He meets President Barack Obama. What does he do? His Holiness says to Obama, oh, you have big ear. And he starts playing with his ear. And what does Obama say? Oh, you notice, So in that very serious, highest level of meeting, His Holiness plays with people. Another story. His Holiness was giving a lecture at Harvard University Sanders Theater, and he had to go through this basement tunnel, and where there was also an office. So we had cleared the tunnel. So as His Holiness was coming out, one lady from the office came out with the files, and she was busy moving forward. His Holiness ran and gave one slap, from the back to the lady. She turned around and looking, thinking, who the hell hit me, And His Holiness looked at her, smiled, and she also smiled. They both laughed and they hugged. They started walking. What did His Holiness tell this lady? He said, fat. Because this lady was, on, heavier side. She laughed, he laughed, they hugged, they walked towards the stairs, and he said goodbye to her, and she said goodbye to him. And she shared the story that His Holiness hit her, and he called her fat. Why the lady was not offended? Because His Holiness is sincere. He has no ill intention. He was very pure in his motivation. For example, myself, I got elected in 2011. In front of thousands of people, I think 50,000 people, His Holiness was giving a speech. At the end, he introduced me. He said, oh, now we have a new leader. He's from Harvard and modern educated and all that. I was getting, quite proud. Then he said, his Tibetan is, of a school standard. Can you imagine? I'm supposed to be a Tibetan leader, supposed to have oratory skills and Tibetan language. And then His Holiness just said, his standard of Tibetan is of a school kid. Everybody laughed, I was embarrassed, right? But what did I do? Did I feel anything bad towards His Holiness? No. Why? Because he's pure, he's sincere, he has no ill intention at all. I laughed with him. I was embarrassed. I wish he would be a little more politically correct with me in front of these people. But no, that's His Holiness for us, right? So people should understand that if you watch the video with the boy, Tibetans will say, that boy is so lucky. He got a hug from His Holiness, and he also got a kiss, right? But then from Western or others' perspective, I can understand it was politically incorrect. Then His Holiness office issued a statement, said sorry, to the boy and the family, anyone who was offended. Now that's the end of the story. We should move forward, right? But then, this rapper, musician, what Cardi B, and saying, oh, the people in power abuse their power. We should protect our children. And she shares the story about His Holiness and the boy. I mean, come on, give a break. Let me share with you a story that no one knows this. Maybe barely 10 people know about this. During COVID, right, America was number 1 in infection and death. India was number 2. That's where His Holiness Dalai Lama lived, right? So I was going to Washington, D.C., and his personal physician, Dr. Siddhartha, called me and said, hey, when you go to D.C., America is about to launch, Pfizer vaccine. If you could get some vaccine for His Holiness, because His Holiness is 85 now, entering 86 years old at that time. All the people who died, majority of them were elders. And His Holiness Dalai Lama was vulnerable, given his age, right? So I came to Washington, D.C. This is in November of 2020, right? And I met people at the White House, the Deputy National Security Advisors and others, and I made a request. And I said, His Holiness is very, he's given his age. We need to vaccinate him and protect from COVID. And White House agreed. And then message was conveyed to the U.S. Embassy in Delhi. They also agreed, right? And then the vaccine was supposed to be taken to Dharamsala. Now the personal physician of His Holiness and the personal secretary approached His Holiness. You know what His Holiness said? He said, oh, please thank the government of America, but I don't want Pfizer vaccine. Because 1.4 billion people in India, they don't have vaccine. And I see people here, ordinary people, they are not getting vaccine also, right? I will wait till they get vaccinated, then only I'll get vaccinated. So, he refused a vaccine from America. That's His Holiness Dalai Lama, right? Now, we waited for a few months, right? And then finally, the vaccine was introduced in India, and AstraZeneca, which is 67% effective. And then again, the personal physician called me and asked me whether the government of India could facilitate that he be vaccinated at his residence. And I made the request to the Health Secretary in Delhi, Health Minister of Himachal and Health Secretary, and they all agreed, right? And the CMO, or the Chief Medical Officer of Dharamsala, was informed. And then, next day, the personal physician went to His Holiness and said, Your Holiness, the COVID vaccine will be given to you at your residence, right? What did His Holiness say? His Holiness said, why should I get a special treatment? I should go down to the hospital where all the people get their vaccine. So he went to the local hospital, like ordinary Tibetans and Indians, and got vaccinated, right? So that's His Holiness. He never used his personal popularity in influence. Far less than that. Even vaccine was offered by America. Even when he was offered to get vaccinated at his residence, he said, no, I will go down to the local hospital. So Tibetans know about it, right? Buddhists know about it. All the people around His Holiness know about it, that he is sincere. He is for us the Buddha of compassion, right? So I hope people around the world will understand through the stories, because of my personal experience, right? And put it in proper context whenever you talk about His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Lastly, major media have covered these story, and then it's time to move on. But also, you are showing concern about children, which is fair. What about 1 million Tibetan children who are forcibly removed from their homes in nomadic families, farming families in Tibet? And they are forced to study in boarding school in urban areas where they are taught in Chinese language. Everything Chinese is taught. They are made into Chinese. Even the UN human rights experts have reported on this. But all these major media who covered this incident of His Holiness Dalai Lama did not report about this 1 million Tibetan children. I hope you all will report about serious and real issues in Tibet. So with that, I want to say thank you to everybody for listening. I hope you got a proper context based on my personal experience about His Holiness Dalai Lama. We love him. We are devoted to him because he is a great leader. He is the great 14th Dalai Lama of Tibet. Thank you.
His Holiness and the young boy, this has now become a very emotional question. And I had liked to ask this question as to who is the real victim in this story. Some say the boy, the family, but I find that the boy is fine. He had spoken well after the event. The mother was fine. The mother had spoken well after the event. All the 120 students who were there in that event had no complaints whatsoever. I looked through all the interviews by the Tibetan media after the event was over. So at that time, there was nothing there. And it was already in the public media, in the public domain. And then, now, the fact of the matter is, His Holiness is now 87 years old, is going to be 88. Because of his age, he needs to be supported from both sides. And you want to accuse an 87, 88-year-old man with this kind of a libel? And His Holiness has always lived in the sanctity of an oath-bound Buddhist monk, including celibacy. And his years of spiritual practice has him gone beyond sensorial pleasures. He has always been preaching the sensorial pleasures of eye, nose, mouth, body. All these are very, very temporary. So you need to go deeper to redeem yourself from this samsara. And someone who preaches that, do you think will be influenced by a physical touch? He is beyond all that. And then the personal integrity of His Holiness was never ever in question in the last 87 years. So how can people pass a judgment on one incident? And that too, not knowing the full sequence of the event. And he lives an unblemished life, preaching and practicing compassion, non-violence, and oneness of humanity. All his life. However, the recent incident involving His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the young boy, in full public view, it didn't happen in some corner or some room or some, undescriptive place. And this was perceived and interpreted differently. I don't blame them. People might have their opinion. They saw it that way because the clip was tailored for that. The clip was tailored for that. And His Holiness was then now being labeled all kinds of names. Maybe for the people who are giving these names, it's an individual case, an individual perception. But His Holiness, for us, is the reincarnation of Avalokiteshvara, the Lord of compassion. And His compassion and His love extends beyond all this. And that really hurts us. Please understand this. We are hurt by the insinuations. Now, if I have to share you how His Holiness has been engaging with people all through his life. Look at all the kind of pictures. His Holiness and Desmond Tutu, when Tutu was here, I was there. They are playing with each other like small children. Look at the picture with His Holiness with his pout and Tutu on the other side. That also, then you could say that, oh, His Holiness may have sexual whatever thing for Tutu. And then if His Holiness hugs a old lady also, does that imply that thing? Not at all. So let me take a little bit of time because this is a serious issue for us. And whenever you have seen His Holiness meeting with political leaders, I've heard of His Holiness holding ears of presidents and then touching foreheads. And that's the highest honor from a Buddhist perspective, for a High Lama to touch forehead with each other. And His Holiness is very unique in that sense. And that is why he is so famous. One of the, but what happened on that day was a little gross for some people. You know, and so holding hands, nose rubbing, the Maori style. His Holiness is very happy doing that because since he was in New Zealand many years ago and rubbed nose, and he rubs noses with many of his guests. And I've been witness to many of these because now I was in Dharamsala for more than 35 years. What, 25 years. 25 years. So I know how these things happen. And then cuddling, sometimes holding your nose. So all these are part of His Holiness antics that His Holiness does. And then forehead to forehead greeting are genuine manifestation of His Holiness compassion for all human beings, irrespective of their status in the society. And His Holiness was also used to play pranks or engage in jovial interactions to amuse the gathering. Now, fact of the matter, on that day was this program was held in a public place, the Chuglakang, just opposite to the residence of His Holiness the Dalai Lama on 28th of February. There were more than 120 college-going students, part of this M3M delegation, who asked to seek his audience. And it was a public event that was covered by the media. And all these happened publicly, not everywhere else or anywhere else. And it was the same boy who we are envious because he got this opportunity to welcome His Holiness, hug His Holiness, all those blessings he got, but others perceive it differently. And it was the same boy, when His Holiness arrived, he broke the coconut to welcome His Holiness, auspicious welcome. And then 2 members of the M3M delegation spoke at that event. Then His Holiness spoke at length about the topic. And the seriousness of that topic, nobody talks. Because that doesn't benefit anybody. That doesn't increase the TRP. You know, and then, after His Holiness spoke, it was question answer session. 3 elders asked the question. Then the 4th one was this young boy again. And if you see the video, he was asking His Holiness, can I ask one question? Can I hug you? His Holiness didn't even understand that because His Holiness has little impairment in the left ear. So the translator was explaining to His Holiness that this boy wants to hug you. And His Holiness didn't hear well from the left. So on the right hand, another personal secretary of His Holiness informed His Holiness, this boy wants to hug you. Then His Holiness said, okay, come. It's not like His Holiness went on the boy and jumped on him. It's totally different, you know. And the boy's mother was sitting on the right-hand side, just next to Professor Samdon Rinpoche. And the mother was also asking the boy to come up. And just as we are Asians, we know how grandfatherly affection can be. But this went a little beyond. You know. So all these happened, and then His Holiness gave an innocent, grandfatherly, affectionate demeanor and greeted the boy. That was followed by His Holiness' jovial prank about the tongue. Okay? And that was meant to be, from my perspective, that was meant to be amusement for others. And all this happened in the presence of the family, of the mother. Now, after that, the videos that you don't see, because it was tailored. After that, again His Holiness embraced the boy. Both embraced each other. Then His Holiness advised this boy, we are same human brothers and sisters. Now you should look at those good human beings who create peace and happiness, and should not follow human beings who always kill other people. You should not look at those people. If you see the video, all those are there. If you want the full coverage, we'll try to make it available to you. From top to bottom, watch the whole thing. And then after the event, Radio Free Asia, Voice of Tibet, they interviewed many of the participants. And one of that was the boy, the same boy. And the boy said after the event that it was amazing. This is boy's words. The video is also there. It was amazing meeting with His Holiness. And I think it's a really great experience meeting somebody with so high positive energy. It's a really nice feeling meeting him, and you get a lot of that positive energy. It's not just like that, but once you get the positive energy, I think you are happier, and it's a better thing to smile a lot more. It's really a good experience. This is just one of the transcription. There is another transcription with Radio Free Asia, who had also interviewed the same boy. Now, speaking to Voice of Tibet, again, the mother of that boy, immediately after the event, the mother said, since we are looking at seeking blessings from His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and today we got this opportunity, especially my family was there with me. All the students who graduated from I Am Power Academy of Skills were also present. We are totally blessed to get this blessing from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. He came and addressed in person and taught about peace that the world needs and how everyone needs to feel together like brothers and sisters. I absolutely cannot express how I feel getting blessed by him. Thank you. That is the boy's mother. Now who is the victim? The mother is not a victim. The boy is not a victim. They are not complaining. The victim here is His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Now why is this happening? I have two conclusions to this. One, however, through our investigation and as per prima facie evidence, we found that the initial instigators are pro-Chinese sources. Now you are all journalists. Please find out how this resurfaced again and who is trying to use that. Chinese sources that itself explains the motivation behind making this video clip viral. It needs no explanation as to who would gain from maligning the image, reputation, and legacy of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Considering the scale and extent of the orchestrated smear campaign, the political angle of this incident cannot be ignored. Then, for the general public who considers or who feels this is disturbing, we would appreciate if you could watch and listen to the full video of the event to get a holistic understanding of the whole program, including His Holiness' speech. We are sure you will be able to differentiate between lust and love. Yeah. That is where we fail. So, and the unfairness of defaming one of the most respected and liked global icons of peace, and that narrows the scope of due diligence and fair judgment from people who are making a judgment on this.
It was amazing meeting His Holiness, and I think it's a really great experience meeting somebody with such high positive energy. It's a really nice feeling meeting him, and you get a lot of that positive energy. It's not just like that, but once you get the positive energy, I think you're happier, and it's a better thing, and you smile a lot more. It was a really good experience overall.
I'm Dr. Payal Kanodia, trustee M3M Foundation. We've been working in Dharamshala on this skill center which we started last year, and since then we were looking at seeking blessings from His Holiness. And today we got this opportunity, and especially when my family was there with me, and all the students who graduated from I Empower Academy of Skills were also present. We are totally blessed to have got these blessings from His Holiness. He came, addressed us in person, taught about peace that the world needs, and how everyone needs to feel together like brother and sister. And I absolutely cannot express how I feel getting blessed by him.